The here we go.
Okay.
Hi everyone, welcome to Think and Grow Rich Daily Hangout. My name is Sandy Levesque, joined by Glenn Walker in Tennessee. Hi Glenn.
Good morning. Be nice if other people joined us today too. That would be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
In
yeah,
fact,
exactly.
I'd spoken to Tracy and I thought he might jump in, sometime this
Ah, yeah,
today, although he's very busy. But
yeah.
this, you know,
Well, I have a feeling with the new time, more people eventually will be coming on live, so it's just going to take a little while for the change uh, to run its course, I think.
yeah,
So yeah, so basically we have a lot of people that watch afterwards. So welcome to this hangout. We're here every day now at this new time of 11 o'clock US Eastern, which is 4 o'clock in London or Lisbon, where I am, and 5 o'clock in Central Europe. So you're very welcome to join us live if you're catching the replay of this and you'd like to come in and actually read from the book and share anything afterwards. So what we're doing at the moment is actually reading from lectures that Napoleon gave a few years after he'd actually published the book. Now I know more of his story. Actually, it was after he had lost everything after the book had been a huge success. He ended up having a divorce that was very costly, and one of the costs was all the royalties from Think and Grow Rich. So these lectures are part of his comeback sometime afterwards. So now whenever I read in what we're reading here, that every adversity carries a seed of an equivalent benefit. Yeah, like yesterday's passage, he was saying that he'd had over 20 major adversities and overcome them. And now I realize he's not just saying it from his research; he actually lived this. It's really fascinating.
it is very powerful to think about that, and that's not unusual. I think, particularly with very successful people, not unusual.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, because they're constantly going out of their comfort zone and
Right.
taking risks, I guess. And so a lot of people are just,
Goodness.
oh,
Take this.
that's okay. Yeah, a lot of people don't take big risks and stay pretty comfortable with where they are. So when you're willing to sort of do things that go out on a limb, do things that some people wouldn't be willing to do, like dedicate 25 years of your life to researching success, then I
Yeah.
guess part of the terrain is things you wouldn't want. But he says, even if he didn't want them at the time, they actually always worked out for the greater good. So
So he had a strong belief, and he definitely put a lot of action. I mean, when you look at that kind of a commitment to his dream, right? I mean, that's pretty strong leadership.
yeah, exactly. And for over so many years, that's what I find amazing is that
Yeah.
a lot of people kind of give up with something after 3 or 4 months if
Yeah.
it's not going exactly how they want, or it's people tend to be quite impatient.
You're
um,
right. You're right. They do.
yeah,
And sometimes, but the journey too, Sandy. Even when you go through the troughs and the high points and all that, the journey is part of it, right? Part of what gets you there. You look.
yeah,
It wasn't. It's
yeah,
not all bad.
exactly.
Like you said, there's equivalent benefit in almost all of the troughs. There's something that you can
Yeah,
get from. So
yeah. And I was speaking to someone at the weekend. He's actually a millionaire. He's a multi-millionaire, and I found myself sat next to him and his wife for a short time at this event I was at. We were chatting, and he was saying about how when people go through these massive ups and downs, often they're they haven't got a peace with things. And he was saying if you can find a peace with the flow of life, I mean, it sounds cheesy, but if you can find a peace, your highs won't be quite as manically high, and but then your lows won't be as crushingly low. And he was
no,
saying you can find this kind of peace where you're happy about things, but you don't get, crazily, ecstatically happy, which makes it a lot easier to kind of go zoom afterwards. So that's
right.
really
Yeah.
interesting. And he recommended a book called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, which I
Yeah,
actually
I've heard of that book
it's
before.
this book here.
Yeah.
It's a great accompaniment to Think and Grow Rich.
Cool.
But
Yeah, we'll
speaking,
add that. We'll add that as another brick, right? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've read it 3 times now, this one. I love it. Um, so we're on page 20 of the lecture, of the second part of the lecture notes.
Okay, and I'll read today, Sandy, because I know you're going to
Okay,
get it, right.
thank you. So
Okay.
part 2.
Part, okay.
Yeah.
So page 20.
And it's while Napoleon was on the start. So just to give a bit of context, what I was reading yesterday
Okay.
is about wanting things, and he was talking about how most people don't really set their expectations very high, and how, as a result, they don't get much because they're not really asking for much. And so he's talking about having a burning desire, which was one of the key principles of his philosophy. And he's talking also about Helen Keller and how she couldn't see, she couldn't hear, she couldn't speak, and yet she didn't give up. She became one of the best educated women in the world, became very well known, affected a lot of people, and all she did was follow vibrations of
I was going to say that, that's, you had mentioned, I mean, you had read that yesterday, and I thought, oh my gosh, we've talked so much about vibration, right, and how important it is.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. It's another way of reading it.
Ah,
Yeah.
you know,
Now we're on to while Napoleon was on the staff of FDR. Do you see it?
okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and start now.
Okay, cool.
Okay. While Napoleon was on staff of FDR, he passed at the corner of Pennsylvania Avenue, the street by the White House, every day. He passed a man sitting there with a tin cup and some pencils. He became acquainted with that man, and he had lost the use of his legs. He had the exact same affliction as FDR, and it happened about the same time. Napoleon found out that he had a better education than FDR had, but out there he was, out there with a tin cup and pencils, trying to make a living by begging. Just a block away, there was a man with the most important and responsible position in the whole world, running a great nation, who also lost the use of his legs. But he hadn't lost the use of his brain. He hadn't lost confidence in himself. These afflictions that come along, sometimes they turn out to be a great blessing. Very often they teach us that we can get along without an eye, without both eyes, or without legs, or without hands. We can get along without a lot of things if we have the right mental attitude towards what's left of us. That's important. Keep your mind on that which you want and not on that which you do not want. How do you go about that? How does one go about keeping his mind off the things he doesn't want? Look up that word transmute and see what it means. Look it up because it will be more impressive in your subconscious mind. The way you keep your mind off the things you don't want is to transfer your mind over to things you do want and start talking about them, start giving thanks for already possessing them. It may sound perfectly silly to someone who doesn't know what you're doing, but it won't sound silly to you because you know what you're doing. You're talking to your subconscious mind, you're re-educating yourself, you're keeping your mind fixed on things you want and off of things you don't want. In order to do that, you have to keep talking. You have to keep thinking. You can't talk without thinking. Well, some people can, but most of them can't. Napoleon, the audience, laughed. Keep on talking about things you want. If you ever feel blue, discouraged, or lacking in courage, sit down and take a tablet, start numbering 1, the thing that you want most in your life. Number 2, the thing that you want next most. Number 3, the thing you want next most. When it gets down to the kind of house you live, describe the lot that you want it on, whether you want it on a lot of acreage, on top of a hill, or down below the road, or above the road, or how many rooms you want in that house to have, how you want each room furnished. You'll have a grand time furnishing those rooms. It'll be better than window shopping because you can go to the limit in your own mind, and window shopping, you only have 2 legs. You can only walk so far. Do a little mental window shopping, and you'll get your mind off that moodiness. You'll get it on to something that's constructive. You'll be educating your subconscious mind to keep on the right side of the street and away from the other side of the railroad tracks. The assignment Napoleon is giving is not foolish. It's not facetious. It's a real assignment. You'll get real joy out of doing it. Start right in doing something physically, writing down the things you want when anything bothers you. Napoleon didn't know why it is that when a person makes up his mind what he wants and becomes determined to get it, that the whole powers of the universe seem to come to his aid to see that he gets it. There's a lot of things in this world that Napoleon could see, and there was a lot of advantages that he could use that he didn't understand, but he didn't need to understand them. He knew which button to press to get the result he wanted, but he didn't need to know what happened between the pressing of that button and the result that happened. If you follow the instructions in this philosophy, you'll be able to take possession of your own mind. You'll be able to get the things out of your life that you want. You'll be able to make life pay off on your own terms. How would Napoleon know? Do you suppose that any person can actually make life pay off point by point on his own terms instead of accepting the circumstances? There's only one way in this world that Napoleon could possibly know that, and that's by his own experiences. There wasn't a blessed thing in the world that he wanted that he didn't have or couldn't get easily. Not anything. What an astounding statement that is. If you go back just a few years ago, as of 1954, what an astounding statement that is, because it's so broadly in contrast with what he might have said a few years back before he had learned the secret of getting everything he wanted. There was a time when he was carrying around in his own pocket the matches with which he was setting his house of opportunity afire and didn't know it. He finally got rid of those matches and began to build that house of opportunity. The house resembled a picture of it, and he built it in his mind right down to the finest detail. There's no such thing as a blanket faith. You must have a definite objective, a purpose, a goal before you can have faith in anything. Faith is a mental attitude wherein the mind is cleared of all fears and doubts and directed towards the attainment of something definite through the inspiration of infinite intelligence. Faith is guidance. It's nothing more. Have you ever thought about that? Faith is guidance. It's nothing more than that. Faith is not going to go out and get you that Cadillac or that house you want or that better job or that business. Faith is not going to do that, but faith will guide you as to how you can do it, and you'll find that there's always a part you must play. The Creator arranges it so that we can produce our food from the soil of the earth. Everything that we eat, use, or wear comes from the earth. Everything, infinite intelligence has very wisely provided a system whereby you can be sure of getting your food out of the soil of the earth. How? By complying with the laws of nature. You go out there, you plant the seed, you plant it in a soil you have examined to make sure it has the elements in there that you want into the plant. You plant it at the right season, you plant it at the right depth in the ground. All of those things you do in way of going the extra mile. You do them in advance. Then what do? Do you go back the next day and start harvesting? Audience member, no. No, you time it properly. You find out what nature requires in order to produce, convert, or transmute a seed of wheat into a stalk of wheat with 500 or 1,000 grains of it, and you comply with nature's laws. That's what you do. You have to do your part. You'll always find that there's a part that you must do in connection with any example of a demonstration of faith. Faith will do nothing for you if you expect everything to be done for you outside of yourself. Faith probably, notice the word probably, why do you think Napoleon said that faith probably works through the subconscious section of the mind? Because nobody knows definitely whether it does or not. It's a theory, and it appears to work through the subconscious section of the mind, the subconscious acting as a gateway between the conscious section of the mind and infinite intelligence. Napoleon's mental picture of what happens when you pray properly is that you first condition your mind, you know what it is you want, then you transfer over to your subconscious mind a clear picture. That subconscious, the gatekeeper between you and infinite intelligence. It's the only one that can turn on the power of infinite intelligence for you. It's the only way you can reach infinite intelligence in Napoleon's Book of Rules. That's the way he got it to work. The definite essential steps in the development of self-reliance based on faith, if there is anything that people need more than anything else, it's self-reliance, belief in yourself. Here are the steps. First of all, about the major purpose to begin at once to attain it, that's the first step in building self-confidence. When you know what you want and you start in getting it, you have a major self-reliance. You're demonstrating a major self-reliance because if you didn't believe in yourself, you wouldn't even begin, would you? The very fact that you start, even though you're a long way from attaining the thing you're going after, shows that you have a major or a degree of self-reliance. And the more you pursue that idea, the stronger that belief will be. Next, associate as many as possible of the 9 basic motives with the object of a definite major purpose. In other words, have yourself inspired by as many as possible of those 9 basic motives when you go after anything. You've had this experience. You wanted something very badly, and in order to get something that meant extra money that you couldn't lay your hands on, you didn't have it in the bank, you weren't earning it. What do you do with the case of that kind? Audience, borrow it. Borrow it. Napoleon and the audience left. A lot of people do. There's always something else that you can do that's more important than borrowing. When Napoleon's son Blair was about 6 or 7 years old, he wanted an electrical train. It cost $50. That's a lot of money back in those days. It was more than Napoleon and his wife thought that he could give him at that time, because they would had to give the other 2 children $50 gifts too. He told Blair, and he said, "Oh, I didn't ask you." He told Blair, and he said, "Oh, I didn't ask you to buy me anything." And Napoleon said, "Well, that's different." Blair said, "I just wanted your approval to buy the train." Snow came the next day. He borrowed a shovel from the janitor. He went down the street cleaning off sidewalks. He didn't ask anybody if he could do it. He just started cleaning sidewalks. People would come out and get into a conversation, and Blair would say, "Oh, I thought it would be a nice thing to just clean off your sidewalk. I see you haven't started doing it yet. I thought it would be nice if you would appreciate it." Invariably, they gave him a quarter, $50, sometimes $1. One man gave him $5. Before the end of the month, he had his $50 and $10 more that he had earned himself. His mother thought that he ought to be permitted, ought not to be permitted to do that. She said, "It's kind of disgraced us to let him go down the street cleaning off sidewalks." Napoleon said, "Disgraced? They want to find out who we are to raise a child like this. How do we do it? How we do it." Write out a list of all the advantages of your definite major purpose and call these into your mind many times daily, thereby making your mind success conscious. Did you know that in order to be healthy, you have to be health conscious? If your mental attitude is not health conscious, if you're not thinking in terms of health, and if you're not suspecting that you're going to be healthy, you're not going to be. No matter what else you do, it's the same thing with reference to success. You accept any kind of a fear complex or an inferiority complex, if you don't expect of yourself and develop a success expectation, you're not going to be a success. You just have to do that. If your major purpose is to achieve some material thing or money, see yourself already in possession of it. When you call it into your consciousness, this is of vital importance, because there again is coming into play your power of faith. If your faith isn't great enough that you can see the thing in your possession before you start to begin it, then you're not making use of applied faith. Associate with people who are in sync with you and your major purpose. Leave them to encourage you in every way possible. This is reference to only close friends or members of your mastermind alliance. Don't disclose your aims and purposes to people who are not absolutely dependable, loyal, and close to you. It's surprising how sometimes to people whom you disclose your ideas, if they're good ideas, they go around the corner and beat you to the draw there, using your ideas before you do, or they're saying something to discourage you. Let not a single day pass without making at least one definite move towards the attainment of your major purpose. Faith is a positive mental attitude in action. Your mental attitude is reflected in every word you speak, and it speaks louder than your words. Your mental attitude is the sum total of your thoughts at a given time. A positive mental attitude has its roots in the spiritual well of one's soul. What a wonderful statement that is. A positive mental attitude has its roots in the spiritual wells of one's soul. Mental attitude is the medium by which adversity may be transmuted into benefits. Print these out in a card or some form where you can put them up and see them each day. Surround yourself with suggestions everywhere you look, so you'll see something that suggests a positive mental attitude. You'll notice when you go into the office of a successful person or into the home of a successful person, if you can find his den or the place where he withdraws unto himself, you'll find that oftentimes he has himself surrounded with pictures of those whom he considers great. Oftentimes he will have models on the wall. Napoleon walked into Ed Barnes' office one time, and he found out that he had over 500 mottos done up in beautiful cards, hand-lettered, every one of them. It must have cost him a small fortune. Napoleon walked into his friend Jenny Randolph's office when he was in Congress, and he found out that he had all of the walls of his congressional office covered with pictures of men whom he considered great. He did that to live in the environment of the great and in an environment of things that kept his mind positive. Start in where you are in your home, in your business, in your office, or wherever you stay the most. Maybe it's your bedroom. You certainly sleep every night. Start in there to put up something that will give you a positive thought just before you go to bed, and will remind you every time you go in there. And when you wake up in the morning, too. I'm going to add that myself. And so that's it, summarized by Andy Hausman.
Yeah, thank you, Andy, if you ever catch any of these Hangouts. I love these notes. Thank you for reading that, Glenn.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's so funny because I've just come from, I just spent a weekend at an event with the biggest international team in the work that I do, which is kind of like network marketing on the internet.
Yes.
And it's a Portuguese team. And it's so funny because what Napoleon's talking about here is exactly their philosophy, and their team is so successful. I've never seen so many different success stories of all types and ages and kinds of people. And one of the things I noticed was that they, they have a higher rate of success. People call it duplication in the business, because it's like things duplicate when it's, if something's working well, it duplicates. Success can duplicate. And their team has that at a really high level, probably more than any other single team in the whole company.
Wow.
And so I was really interested to know why that is. And having spent 2 days with them, I can really sense why, because the guy who started it with 4 of his friends, they had this really strong belief that they could help people create $1,000 a day. That was their target. And the first guy said that people laughed at him when he spoke about this, and especially I can imagine in Portugal, where the average incomes are lower than in America. It would have been even more kind of a jump for people to believe that was possible, but he believed it was. And he drummed that into everyone who joined what he was doing, saying, this is your target, you need to do this, this, this to get that. And people started to create that result. And so then they started to trust that what he said and what he was suggesting worked. And it's filtered through to such a massive level, I was around with 700 people, and a huge proportion of them were having success, higher than any proportion I've ever seen before.
Wow.
And when they did a Q&A at the end of the event, and some of the people there were asking about a change in the company and being a bit negative, actually. And, there was one question, then another one, then another one. And then he just stood up and said, look, when you have a Formula 1 driver and the driver is about to crash, they train Formula 1 drivers not to look at where they think the car is going to go, but to look at the center of the road to bring them to make sure that the car doesn't crash. Because if you lose control of your car and you start panicking and imagining the car crashing, you're that much more likely to actually make it happen. And so they actually train the drivers to look at the center of the road, even if their minds and the fear they have is telling them to look where they're headed, and to pull the car back to the center. And he was saying to his team, you've got to stop worrying about this. You're creating this in your mind, and focus on what you want to do the work necessary to get there, and that's it. And that was the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
And so it's just a really great example of this whole book in action. I loved it so much. I was just totally...
Well, yeah. I mean, it's great that you got to go and experience that this weekend, because it brings it alive again for you too, right? And for me, and for anybody that's listening to this. I think that's That's a
Yeah.
wonderful example, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And because it's just so interesting because they have um, this very strong belief that if you do this, this will happen. And they teach it to their whole team, and many people in the team, not everyone, it's not like every single person who joins is becoming a rock star on the internet, but
Yeah,
a really high number of people are, way more than I've ever seen till now.
yeah,
And the people that aren't, it's more like people assume, well, that's just because they're not really doing the work, or they're not really being consistent,
yeah,
or they've got some kind of issue. It's not, they trust that things will work. And
yeah.
it was a great lesson for me, and I think for, you guys watching, to really know that whatever you want to do, if you trust that it will work. And I actually just made a video about this, so it's quite funny. The one of the people who was there, he described it like this. He was saying that if you have a really favorite sports team, like, do you like sports, Glenn?
I don't spend as much time on sports as I did when I was a youth, but I enjoy, once in a while I'll enjoy a game, particularly if it's like the championship type level, that type thing, Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I like
So
baseball and football and, various sports. I know you're a big soccer fan.
yeah, I love especially, well, not so much league soccer, but I love watching World Cups and
Yeah, yeah,
championship.
championship stuff, yeah.
And he gave the example, which I just loved, of if you if let's say you have a favorite team and they're playing a big match, but you can't watch the match live for some reason, so you record the match, or you get someone to record it for you. But then before you have a chance to watch it, you find out what the score was, on Facebook or whatever.
Yeah,
But because you love your team, you still want to watch it, even though you know what the end result's going to be. And he was saying that you'll still watch the match, and if in the beginning of the match the team doesn't score any goals, or a man gets sent off, I'm thinking of soccer here, or something bad happens, you won't get panicky or stressed because you know that they win in the end.
the
So you'll
outcome,
just
yeah.
be yeah, exactly. You'll be watching in a way that doesn't go through these ups and downs of, oh my God, and stress and anxiety. You'll just be watching the match and enjoying it. And he was saying that you can do that with your targets and your goals. Is if you know that because you've made it so, you've especially if you're following the steps in this book, I think, if you've got a clear vision of where you want to go, you're affirming it every single day, by saying it out loud or praying or however you do it, then you already know the end result. It's like the score at the end of
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
journey.
that's a lot like the video you did about come from your dream, not
Yeah,
yet. Right?
exactly. It's the same kind
I
of.
recommend people go back and find that video because that was an excellent description, really, of what you're saying there, right? Really.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I just really got a lot out of that, the way he described it, because he said, if you know that no matter what, you're going to get to this point that it doesn't mean that then you stop there. Everyone's always saying you can then set a new target after that. Whatever
Yeah,
your current target is now, and in whatever you
yeah,
would like most in the world, if you know that it's going to happen because you've already decided it's going to, and you want it to happen, then everything
well,
else is just, it's just part of the way of getting there. It's not, you don't
yeah.
have.
I want to just add one thing, Sandy, to what you just said there. The greater danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that it's too low and we reach it. So,
Yeah,
so in our dream building, remember, really the fun part of it is that if you always stay on the edge, well then your dream's going to grow, right? When you hit that dream that is very important to you right now, based on your faith and your action, right?
yeah,
Then from there, when you hit that dream, guess what? By then, guess what you'll be doing? You'll be dreaming at a larger level.
yeah,
It's amazing, right? It's
yeah.
amazing. I mean, it
It's
is,
true. Yeah,
and it's thrilling. It's thrilling too, even at my age. It's thrilling, right? It's a great thing.
yeah, yeah. Totally. I really. I find it really inspiring that you're dream building and and expanding your mind and doing new things, because that's how I think. You know,
Yeah,
I know I'll be doing that when I'm,
yeah, my age
you
or
know,
whatever.
your age, and I
Yeah,
don't. It's so many people just kind of stop it when they stop working, and I think
yep.
that's a real shame. So
Yeah,
yeah, and because we can all we all have amazing greatness within us.
we do.
If we're 60, if we're 96, you know, it's the same. We all have a spirit in us that can do amazing things, no matter what age we are. So, um, yeah, really inspired.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, it's been great reading today and being,
Yeah.
of course, you know.
Well, thank you for reading, Glenn, and great to see you back again, and to be back on there, and at this new time.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So
he's at the
let's
beach
hope we
today.
get some people to join us too, right? We'd love that.
Yeah, exactly. So let's what was I going to say? Let's wrap it up there and have a great day, everyone, or
Yeah.
evening, wherever you are in the world. And just remember that what was the main thing you would say from this reading, Glenn, today? The main message.
Well, you know, I mean, he really goes to the fact that faith is deep in your soul, right? It's deep inside of you. So the more that you can build that faith in yourself, right? Then the better, the more self-confidence you'll have, and you'll take actions that are definitely in the direction of your dreams. You know, I
Yeah,
think that's very powerful.
yeah, exactly. Like that that phrase was beautiful. I have to find it quickly.
Yeah, yeah. See if you can find that.
The
That's
wells of the
great.
spirit, something like that, wasn't it? The your faith is. I'm just looking for it.
He repeated it twice. He said that same sentence twice.
Yeah, I'll have to put it in the group. Um,
Let me see. I might be able to find it real quick. It was like back just a couple of pages, I think.
yeah. Huh. Uh, where is it?
But it's a good thing to end on too today, I think. You know.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Oh.
Must have been back further than I thought. Okay. Oh,
Oh, here
darn.
we go. A positive mental attitude has its roots in the spiritual well of one's soul.
Yes,
Yeah. I love that.
I do too. I love that too. It is. It's
Yeah.
there. You know.
Cool. Okay, well, let's go and water the well and and have a positive mental attitude, a PMA, as some people call it.
Right.
And
Okay.
see you tomorrow, everyone.
Okay. Have a great day.
You too, Glenn. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.